What if I told you that there was a way for your financial brand to level up, to finally escape having to ever compete on the same commoditized great rates, amazing service, and laundry list of lookalike product features that every other financial brand promotes? Not only that, at the same time, you would be able to improve your culture, improve the well being of your internal team, which would lead to increased retention, which would lead to increased service externally, while also at the same time unlocking new interest income opportunities that pays dividends in a different way, pays dividends by deepening the relationship that your financial brand has with people and the trust fund that sits between their ears as you make emotional deposits into their mind every 30 days. Most of all, what if I told you that you could finally transform the lives of people in your community by giving them more than just that commoditized loan or that commoditized deposit product, but truly helping them level up their financial confidence so that they can get beyond the financial stress that is taking a toll on their health, on their relationships, and on their overall well-being. Now, if these questions get you thinking, if these questions get you excited about future growth opportunities, well, this episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast is just for you. Greetings and hello. My name is James Robert Lay, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. Today's episode is part of the Exponential Insight series, and joining me for today's conversation is Shannon McLay. Shannon is the founder and the CEO of The Financial Gym, and today, Shannon and I are going to explore some of the biggest growth opportunities that you can create, that you can capture at your bank, at your credit union, or at your FinTech, through a commitment to first establish and then expand a financial coaching program. We're also going to bust some of the myths that have prevented financial brands from integrating financial coaching into their product mix. And as a result, they're still competing on the same great rates, amazing service, and commoditized laundry list of product features that every other financial brand promotes. But also at the same time, they're missing out on millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in loans and deposits. Welcome to the show, Shannon. It is so good to share time with you today.
So good to be with you too, James.
Absolutely. And before we get into talking about the opportunities that might be there for financial brands to either create even more value than just offering a commoditized product, but offering coaching, financial coaching, what is good in your world right now, personally, professionally, and is your pick to get started?
I mean, all things are good in our world, and I can't wait to talk about the value of coaching because we are literally seeing it unfold in real time here at Financial Gym as we launch a new subsidiary, our RIA subsidiary, FG Advisory Services, which is a service our clients have been asking for, investment management, as we're helping them grow and build wealth. They're like, can you help me manage my wealth? And we are going live literally this week with that and have very high demand from our clients and really excited to see the extension of the coaching relationship grow into other areas of the business.
I am so excited about this news for you because it's like I've been watching the journey that you've been on. If I think about the world of coaching, financial coaching specifically, it's been an area that I have been researching, thinking about, writing about, speaking about for almost a decade.
Yeah.
As a digital anthropologist through the lens of financial services. You, on the other hand, I've
been building it, James. I've been doing it. I've been in the
it.
weeds for the last 10 years. You've been writing about it. I've been in the weeds proving it for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And yes, you and I connected years ago because you wrote your first book and you were interviewing me about coaching. And I remember when we connected, I was like, somebody gets it too.
That's right.
You know, it's like you feel like the crazy person in the desert, like saying, no, this is the thing. And then you hear somebody and, you know, you've been in that too. And I was like, yes, he gets it.
Well, you've been doing it. And I think that's why I want to surface some of the lessons that you've learned. But when we say this word financial coaching within financial services, banks, credit unions, it doesn't matter, even FinTech.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different ways to think about it. So before we get into what it is in the context today from what you've been doing, take us back in time to when you first started the Financial Gym
Yeah.
because you used to work in banking yourself.
Yes. I am a Gosh, 13-year veteran, 14-year, I can't keep up. But when did I leave? 15-year veteran of traditional financial services. So started on a trading floor at Bank of America in the year 2000, worked in investment banking with them for 8 years, had 2 years in a hedge fund, then back to Bank of America after they had merged with Merrill Lynch in 2009. And I was working with Merrill Lynch advisors in that role, then became a Merrill Lynch advisor. So I literally seen all sides of the banking industry and finance industry at that point. And I became a Merrill Lynch financial advisor because I was looking for my own advisor at that time. And I tell people in that process, I just became woke to the advisory space. And I'd seen it, I know it. I'd been in financial services for 13 years at that point, but 70+% were men. And I always say, there's not a problem with that. I married a man, I birthed a man. I am not a male hater. I love them. But it just felt really unfair that it was hard to find anything really different than
Mm,
an old white man
right.
at that time. So I was like, if you can't beat him, join him. So I became a Merrill Lynch financial advisor and I wanted to help more women become advisors. But as I was building and learning the financial advisory space, I was seeing a whole other field of people who were being neglected by the space. So at Merrill Lynch, you had to have 250,000 in assets to work with me. You literally didn't count as a client, as a household, unless you had 250,000 in assets. So I was mentored. I always use mentored in air quotes because I never took their advice, but I was mentored at Merrill Lynch to pre-screen my calls to make sure people even had money before I talked to them because they wouldn't even count. And I remember hearing that and thinking, I really don't feel comfortable asking someone how much money they have before we have coffee.
Right.
So I neglected that advice and I said yes to every meeting and I became the advisor of yes. People were like, I have a friend who needs an advisor. I'm like, yes, let's meet. Let's discuss. And I was meeting all these people and who were not Merrill Lynch clients. One of the first people when I met with her, she started telling me her story. She said, I have 250,000. And I was like, great. It was almost like a movie. I was like, perfect. And then she says, of student loan debt.
Oh,
And I was like, "Wah, wah, wah." Like,
right.
I was like, "Oh, total other side of the balance sheet," right? And she's like, "And I only make $50,000 a year, not the six-figure law job my private law school told me I would have when I graduated." And she's like, "I just feel unlovable. Who would wanna
Mm,
marry me with all this debt?" And that was a lot to unpack over coffee, but I was like, "I gotta help this person." And and then I started becoming the pathway to becoming the worst financial advisor ever because I just kept taking more and more of those what I call pro bono meetings
yeah.
and working with those people, and loving that work and, figuring out how to help them, and I literally did that for a period of time until I hit my aha. I hit my spark of fire, Oprah aha moment. And it was a week of my life that was 11 years ago now, but the week started with a couple that was a Merrill Lynch couple, had over $1 million with me. We were doing their quarterly review. Their portfolio was down 3%. And it was like the end of the world to them. They were like,
Yeah.
"How are the kids gonna go to college? How is this gonna happen?" They were, like, losing their minds, and I spent an hour of my life making them feel better about being a little less rich, and their portfolio, by the way, was down 3% because the markets were down.
Right.
By the way, the markets were down 6%, their portfolio is down 3. But I spent all this time assuring them that they were gonna be okay, and I left that meeting feeling like almost like a high ick factor because I was like, "This doesn't feel right to me." And then a few days later, I met with one of those pro bono clients, and I had done a plan for her, which is similar to plans we do at the gym. It was just bulleted. Here's much you need to save. Here's how you deal with the credit cards. Here's what you do with student loans. And in that meeting, she said, you're saving my life, right? And I was like, gosh, this meeting feels so much better than that other meeting. I never
Yeah.
thought a financial plan could save anybody's lives, but PS it can. And at the same time, I was on a weight loss journey and I was like, there's so many places people could go to lose weight and get physically healthy. But if people want to get financially healthy, this was my dilemma. Where do I send all these pro bono clients to who are willing to pay money, they don't want a handout, they don't want a nonprofit, they want to pay for help. Where do I send these people that's gonna treat them like a human being and worthy no matter what their net worth says? And I thought if you want to get financially healthy, you would go to a financial gym. And it literally came to me like a lightning. I was like, it's a gym, it's like H&R Block, but fun and cool. Advisors
Yeah.
are trainers, they wear jeans and t-shirts, and clients pay a monthly membership fee just like a regular gym. And just like a regular gym, anyone can work out there. And we have workouts for everybody. And that was 11 years ago now.
Wow. When you share that story, it just it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's the obvious, and the connection between a person's financial well-being and their physical well-being. It's becoming even more documented. The TD Bank, I remember, did a study called the Fiscal Fit Study, and this was years ago, but it was
Mhm.
what really started to spark my mind of, like you, we
Mhm.
have gyms for physical wellness.
Yep.
Financial quote unquote wellness back in the day, let's say a decade ago, was financial education, financial literacy.
Yeah.
And while I think that was great at the time,
Mhm.
if we go back a decade now, because a decade gives us a good horizon line to review from,
Yep.
people might be quote unquote more knowledgeable, but it hasn't transformed behavior.
Well,
And I
yeah,
and
because
I
what
think
they
that's
did
yeah.
was what they did was they gave coursework and, like, app and technology, like, "Hey, let these people figure it out on their own." What they missed in that process is that financial literacy is another language, just like,
Mm,
learning English or Greek or, or French. It's a whole other language, and if you give somebody a course on French without any context or
mhm.
somebody teaching it, then they're gonna watch that course and not understand half of it because
Yes.
it doesn't make sense if you don't put it in context. And while some of those courses were well intentioned and we saw a number of them, I know Bank of America worked with, I'm forgetting, I know you'll know James, but whatever the institute was to do coursework on it. I was like, okay, that's great. And these are cute videos with cute diagrams. But if you don't understand what they're saying, we had a meeting or we had a we used to do when we had physical locations opened at the gym. We called them Wine and Learn Wednesdays, and every Wednesday night we'd host an event about a topic, an educational topic, and people have wine and drinks and learn something. And one of those nights we did investing 101, and I we go through the terms, and a woman raised her hand at the end of it because I said, "Hey, questions." It's a room about 100 people, and she raised her hand. She's like, "I know this is going to be dumb, but can you tell me where the markets are? Because everybody says I should be investing in the markets, but what are they? Is it a place I go to? Is
Wow.
it like, what is that?" And that was an aha to me, James. Like, and in the past, had clients ask, what's the difference between equities and stock? What's the difference between fixed income? Those kind of things. And I've been used to answering those. That was another aha of what are the markets? And I was like, wow, people don't have a basic understanding of the fundamentals of the language.
Yes.
And so if you don't understand that and somebody's saying investing in the markets, you don't even know what a market is, then you're not picking up on anything.
You're touching on something that I wrote about in Banking on Digital Growth that I diagnose as banker knees. Back to your point of
Mhm.
financial literacy, quote unquote, being another language. We even see this when we conduct and facilitate digital secret shopping studies on bank and credit union websites. There's a just a it's a vocabulary, and what our
Mhm.
perspective of the world is different than the perspective outside. I want to look at the larger financial services landscape for just a moment, and
Yeah.
because what we're talking about is a misunderstanding here to begin with. When we think about financial coaching, what is a
Mhm.
common misconception that other financial brand leaders at banks and credit unions might have around this terminology, financial
Yep.
coaching, that you would disagree with and provide an alternative perspective based upon your experience?
They think, and they've always thought this, I saw this when I was at Merrill Lynch and Bank of America. I think what most brands, financial brands feel like is if they provide a human resource, the coach, that, oh, there's millions of people. We can't possibly, they'll be so draining on our human capital. How do we address this? And by the way, our coaching business has 50% profit margins. So you can do coaching profitably, FYI. But you know, I hate that because it's like you don't wanna give a human
Pause.
being
I
to
want to I
some.
want to pause you on that, because that's a
Okay.
I don't want to gloss over that point,
Yeah.
because I think about who listens to this. Profitability is important.
Mhm.
Can we rewind that just 1 second about margins here? Because
Yeah.
I don't want that to be something that we just blow by.
Yeah. We've had anywhere between 40 upwards of 50% profit margins, from our coaching business, and most wealth management profit margins are in the 24%. And so I said, "I've got a more profitable person sitting in this seat," and we hadn't even had a wealth management solution at that point.
Mhm.
And again, our clients were willing to pay for the service. And I think that's the thing too, is that the banks feel like they've gotta or financial institutions have to charge fees or interest rates, and they have to make money behind the scenes that to be profitable on clients. First of all, we have a lot more knowledgeable clients with Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zs. They know what's happening behind the scenes. They get that there's all these fees happening, and so that's not really going to work for them anymore. And what they'd rather do is they'd rather pay you
Yeah.
to give them that advice and know what they're paying for and trust the advice, and then they'll do the other things. And so I just always hated that. And as a startup, I had a difficult time raising money because we had a physical location and everybody wanted to see tech only. And then they
Hmm.
wanted to see apps and they wanted to see a bot or an AI advisor. And I was like, okay, but people need to talk to a human being, and they're going to cry in front of a human being and not a bot or an app, which people are very emotional around money. And my argument was like, look, you're going to spend a lot of money on people, but it's going to be web developers and engineers who are very expensive to the bottom line to create these apps and techs, versus you could have a more cost effective, branch employee who's trained as a coach, who's going to bring more profitability than that engineer on any web app that your client's not even going to use. Because we've seen this too over the years. There's the other misconception that I think the industry has been trying to give too much technology to people, thinking they're going to use it. They don't want to use it, James. Money is very stressful for people. There's plenty of research to show that. So if you're feeling stressed about something, why are you going to get into an app that's going to make you more stressed and anxious
Mm.
about it? Our clients avoid. I had a client years ago tell me Mint.com was judging her.
Mm.
And I was like, what do you mean Mint.com is judging you? It's an app. She's like, well, it told me I spent too much dining out last week. And I was like, well, you probably did, but, that's because you said you spend $100 going out a weekend. You don't even know what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you spent 200, which is probably what you're normally doing, but you put the wrong input because you're a human being not tracking that, and then the app is just responding to your input.
Sure.
So, but the point of all that is that she's like, Mint.com judges me, so I deleted the app. Right. So if the tech is stressing people out, they're just going to delete it or not go into it. And we saw that we have a web portal. We have, our clients can go in and use it. They're never in there. They wait for their quarterly meeting. They wait for their coach or their trainer. We call them trainers here. They wait for their trainer to tell them how they're doing.
Mm.
They think they're doing horrible, and the trainer's going to give them, hey, I pulled the numbers together. Here's what it looks like. And they're like, oh, it's better than I thought. Or if it's bad, at least they can deal with it live instead of on their own with the app and get in all their feels and be depressed.
Yes. So you're touching on this idea of, we'll just call it at a macro level, accountability. And that's something that
Mhm,
I have been coaching now for at least 7 or 8 years. That, take PFM, mint.com, for example.
mhm.
People are more likely to be held accountable by another human being than
Yeah,
by a bot, an app, an AI.
yep,
It's human behavior here at its
yep,
core fundamental level. I mean, something as simple as you can ignore an alarm. You hit the snooze button. That's a machine. But if you have someone who's waking you up to hold you accountable, it changes the whole dynamic of the relationship. And you're touching into this idea of relationship with money. I
mhm,
want to dive into another misconception here for clarity, because financial coaching can be
mhm.
interpreted by some within the industry as it's just another word for financial advisor.
Right,
What's the difference between the coach or the trainer, as you call them,
mhm.
and a financial advisor?
Yeah, so a lot. They're a different person. So I've seen a number of financial institutions try to implement a coaching program, and they take their advisory team and try to train them to be
Ah,
coaches. And I've told those institutions it's going to fail, because the mindset of an advisor, at least in the traditional state that I've worked with that I know is out there, we call them the Garys here at the gym. But that advisor has a different mindset than a coach. And a person who's got a coaching mindset is going to approach a client differently than a person with an advisor mindset. But the coach aspect of it all is really getting in the weeds and kind of understanding the client, giving them empathy and resources, instead of just trying to point them in a way and feel like you're the expert, which is a typical advisor role. The coach is more kind of like working out with the client. And what we've seen happen with the coaching, for years I had people tell me, "Are you worried that you have unlicensed advisors working for you?" Because up until recently, we weren't. licensed advisors. And I said, no, I'm never concerned about that. I'm honestly more concerned that I have unlicensed therapists working for me. I don't know who the regulatory body is for therapists. I've been more concerned about them coming after me because the type of meetings and the work we're doing in a coaching session, it's about mindset shift. It's about like we're not just only tracking our clients' expenses. We're not tracking them with judgment or to say anything. We're just trying to figure out what's happening. And in those meetings, we find out, okay, a client spent $2,000 on Amazon buying self-help books because they broke up with their partner and they're in a bad place. And that's why, but if the app sends an alert, you spent $2,000 on at Amazon and judges you because you had that big spend, that's a different experience versus a coach being like, let's talk through this. Okay, what the $2,000 spend I like to and I like make a lot of analogies to fitness stuff. It's like they ate a cheesecake, right?
Yeah.
It's not the best for us physically to eat an entire cheesecake in one sitting, but they did it. Can I take back that cheesecake? I mean, yeah, we could probably return those books, but like, she read she was using them for her self-help. So now we just have to work off the cheesecake. I can't judge you for eating the whole cheesecake like an app will do. We gotta work on how we work off the cheesecake now and how we try not to eat another cheesecake, at least for a few months till we work off this cheesecake.
This is something that I discussed in depth with Dr. Megan McCoy, and her affiliation with the Financial Therapy Association. There's a lot of connection here, once again, between the mental piece of this, the mindset piece of
Mhm.
this. This is also, uh, I'm about to publish my second book, Banking on Change. And while this first take is written to a financial brand leader that is having to navigate the complexity of change within an organization, whether that's digital transformation, cultural transformation, brand transformation, whatever that is, the
Mhm.
tenets in this book can easily be applied externally to financial transformation for
Mhm.
account holders. However, I
Yeah.
think there's a way to look at creating value here. And that's starting within. It's starting to work with internal team members that work within a financial brand that are
Mhm.
dealing with imposter syndrome. They're
Yeah.
struggling. They're
Yep.
not
Yep.
in the best financial shape. And there should be no shame tied to
There's
that.
no shame. 70+ % of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and that number's higher. It was lower last year because student loan payments weren't back.
Yep.
This year, now student loan payments are gonna be back, and the average student loan payment's like $300. So now I know that number is gonna be higher than 70+%, but the point is the large majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you're in that camp, you are not alone. You
Mm,
are actually with the majority of your peers. The thing is, people just don't know because we don't wear our financial digits around like we could wear our weight or even our mental health. We could see, even on Zoom meetings, you could see if somebody's struggling that day.
yeah.
You could see a mental tiredness, you could see a physical tiredness. You can't see a financial tiredness. Everybody's hiding it
Mm,
because we're not posting our net worths everywhere. We're not posting our transactions anywhere.
right.
So we're all hiding it,
Well,
but we're all experiencing it.
and then you compound that with comparison culture and Insta,
Mhm.
picture and TikTok and whatnot. Everyone else is, living their quote unquote best life. And I know that a lot of that's going to be like generational context.
Yep.
But if we come back and we take care of our internal team first, we increase their financial confidence. This
Yeah.
was actually something that SunTrust did back around about a decade ago. Super Bowl
Mhm.
is right around the corner. 2014, they launched the On Up program.
Mhm.
And they started first and foremost working within their associates. And what
Yeah.
they did is they actually created, it was like they did an internal study, about $1,500 in emergency saving over about, I think it was like a 6-month period. And then they
Mhm.
launched externally to the public. But it makes a lot of sense. And it's something that in Banking on Change, I have a new formula for growth where EX plus HX in parentheses can then be multiplied by DX. So employee experience plus human experience can then be multiplied by a digital experience. That is
Mhm.
a path towards growth.
Yeah.
But even I think about there are people who listen to this podcast, bankers, credit union leaders, FinTech leaders. We have had them start reaching out to us and saying, you're onto something, you're pressing on a pain, and I'm
Mhm.
resonating with it. How
Mhm.
can I get some help here? And so we making some recommendations, Financial Gym and others, that it's like, hey, there are the resources, but they're like, well, why are we not doing this? Why are we
Yeah.
not supporting our team internally? And I don't know,
Because
why is
nobody
that?
because nobody wants to give resources to their employees, right? Because it's expensive, and we've talked to a number of companies about this. They're afraid of giving them and they've told us HR heads are afraid of giving the service to their employees because they're like, "Well, what if they ask us for more money and we can't afford to pay them more? And then what's gonna happen there?" And my response to them is, FYI, people, the large majority of our clients, which we've worked with over 15,000 people in all 50 states at this point, the large majority of our clients are not coming to us saying, "I wanna make more money." I What they're saying is, "I wanna be paid fairly." They're not saying, "I wanna be make more money." What they're saying is, "I want my lifestyle to work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what lifestyle I can afford. I know I'm living above my means. I don't know what it is." They're not asking for more. Actually, most people wanna make less. Most people wanna reach financial independence and not have to work into their 60s, which means adjusting to living off of less. So I say you're wrong in your response is like your employees aren't necessarily and they're not gonna ask for more money. They wanna feel confident and energized with the money they're making, and they wanna be paid fairly.
Yeah, but I think the counter argument to that, once again, coming back from the research that we've done, the average cost of quote unquote financial stress is making a negative impact
Oh,
of
yeah.
about
That is
$5,000 per employee per year. And so thinking about this, whether that's the internal context with, leveling up the financial confidence of those working within a financial brand or externally leveling up the confidence of account holders, how much, and you touched on this, and I want to loop back, how much does an understanding of human behavior play into establishing and expanding a program like this to begin with, within the first place? And
Yeah,
perhaps could a lack of knowledge around human behavior, maybe even more deeply, an empathy gap, be an
1,000%.
impediment for financial brands integrating coaching into their product mix?
1,000%, and I'll tell you why. We've been doing this for 11 years. We obviously learned a lot along the way, and in the early days, it was we had early adopters, closer like, wanting to do a thing. We got to a point early on, it was, like, in 2017 where we were part of our process was we'll send people the intake, like what they need to send to us before they have their first session. We had people not showing up for the first session.
Hmm.
And we're like, what's going on? And we had to do research. We realized that people didn't want to fill out that spreadsheet because they had anxiety around it. And so, and
Ah,
then then that gave them anxiety around the first meeting.
hmm.
And so, then we had to adjust our process there. Then, we call your first session with us at Financial Gym the financially naked session, and it's a tongue in cheek thing, but it's that we're acknowledging how taboo money is, and when our client is telling us all these details, what their credit score is, how much money they have in their bank account, they are stripping financially in front of us, and we're fully clothed. And that's the level of discomfort that we now know our clients have, and that's why we're able to train our team better to address that because we've learned that over the last 10 plus years of the behavioral finance of it all. But I also just have to say, I love that we have the term financially naked in our Form ADV that's been filed with the SEC and approved and accepted by the SEC. So I just love that we even have the term financially naked in there. But but that's the level of human emotion. I think the large majority of financial institutions have no idea. And what's crazy to me is that they're feeling it. Every influencer, every decision maker in a financial institution, because we just said 72% are living paycheck to paycheck. They're feeling it, and yet they're having this lack of empathy, understanding that their employees are having it, or their clients are experiencing, or their members are experiencing it, and that's the thing we've learned. We have been having very intimate conversations with people in a therapy. It feels therapy like for the last 11 years.
Yeah.
There's not a single financial institution who has that much data, for us. And here's the crazy thing. We have a coaching program for employers that's $15 a person per month. And we feel like it's a great bargain, right? We're like, look, you're paying $500 a month for their health insurance. You're paying $70 a month for them to go to the gym. You won't pay $15 a month to get them financially healthy. And by the way, in a 20-minute session that our coaches have with their employees, dramatically changes their life. We're getting clients to save thousands in 20 minutes.
There,
And you won't give that to your employees?
there,
Come
there-
on.
well, yeah, I'm going to come back to something. It's this idea that 80% of people in the United States feel that financial stress, they feel that financial anxiety whenever I go and I do keynote sessions, I've got
Mhm.
1,000, 2,000 people, and I bring this up and I'm like, listen, I'm not asking anyone to raise a hand, but I want
Yeah.
you to think about yourself for a moment. Is that
Mhm.
you? It's almost obvious who it is because I can look out from the stage and I see
You
the
see them,
body
their
language. I
eyes.
see the squirming in the chair. And it's not to call anyone out, but it's like, you don't have to do this alone. And I even think we facilitated a session within a little cohort that we had. It was a bunch of marketing leaders. I said, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms. And I just want you to
Mhm.
just share your financial narrative. I want you to see what just this feels like. And you can share as much as you want to share or as little as you want to share. But remember, all transformation that leads to future growth starts by telling the truth. And
Yeah.
there's a
Well, it was probably like group therapy, right, James? It was
it
like a group therapy session. We've
it
had those too. Yeah.
it was, and
It's liberating.
it was completely liberating. And I think, this gets into a whole different level of like raising quote unquote human consciousness. Like
Mhm.
Dr. Hawkins, I mean, he has his map of consciousness. And what is the very bottom of that map of consciousness? It's shame, it's
Mhm.
fear, it's
Mhm.
guilt. And so if we can at least raise this up, because what happens is when you share that story, it
Yeah.
requires courage to lean into that. Even more so, I would say, if you're working within the vertical. And so I want to get a little practical here as we start to
Mhm.
wrap up. How does this work?
Yeah.
Practically speaking, what does a financial coaching look like
Mhm.
applied?
Yeah. Step 1, you have to hire the right coaches. So, trying to make an advisor a coach, you're doomed to fail right there, right? You've gotta hire the right people, and when you think about hiring a coach, I think about the type of, institutions, the way they hire for branch employees is that, right? Because and you see the way that a lot of the institutions have gone with branch employees, they're like customer service reps, they're in the hospitality, they maybe were in the hospitality
Mm,
industry before, maybe they're teachers, there's certain personality type we know, I'm not going to give away all our secrets, but we know that the personality types that make really great coaches because we've been doing it for the last 10 years, but there is a personality. So hiring the right team, having the right training program that is going to address all the things, because by the way, your training program shouldn't just be what's a CD and how to open up a credit card. You will get to that. Here's the thing is like, that I just want to say as a final point. So sorry, I'm going to get back to this. It's hiring the right people. It's the right training program. It's the right support for them over a period of time. Those I think are the critical things, and then constantly reviewing that process. But when we do a coaching session for a client, we get all their financially naked information. And then the next session, we're discussing the wellness plan and how they can enact it. Typically, clients need 3 to 4 financial products that we identify in that first session. So, what I hate is most financial institutions lead with product,
yeah.
and what we do is we lead with coaching, and we identify the products through that process. And what I've tried to advise other institutions as well is like, look, you can cross-sell multiple products if you just start with this coaching first mentality, or how do we help our client, how do we help our member, how do we help our user
Yeah.
with the resource they need, you'll be able to sell as many products as you want to them after that.
Go read chapter 9 of Banking on Digital Growth, because it's the matter, it's how you perceive yourself in the narrative that you're telling. And if you think of yourself as the hero, you're going to enter into the story of someone else, a member or an account holder or a user. If you're a FinTech, you're going to enter into that narrative as the anti-hero, because there can only be two heroes in a narrative. You have your protagonist, you have your antagonist. What you're talking about here is taking on an even more important role, which is that of the helpful and empathetic guide. And
Mhm.
you're going all in. You're asking good questions, you're listening to what they're having to say, but you're also learning through observation, which comes back to this idea of human behavior, emotional intelligence. As we start to wrap up, I want to look towards the
Oh,
future.
wait, can I just make one
Yeah,
more point,
roll it
James?
back.
Because you brought it up. You're also gonna have better and happier employees, because most people want to help other people, and they wanna have a job where they have a meaningful impact on people's lives. And so we have teammates who have been with me for 7 plus years. I've been doing this for 10 years. I say it's the greatest drug ever. It's a very challenging job, but the work that I do with my clients that I have been for the last ten years is work that I could do the rest of my life. when you have a client tell you, you've saved their life
Yeah.
or they've never felt more confident or you see that transformation happen firsthand, you now, financial institution, have given that employee a job that's extremely meaningful instead of a job that where signing up for bank accounts or, calling somebody because they haven't paid their credit card debt. You're giving somebody the ability to have a really great and meaningful job as well. So it works on both sides.
I want to expand upon that thought too. When you have a coaching program and you have a regular cadence of meeting with clients, members, users on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, you're making emotional deposits into the trust fund that sits between their ears, thus raising the brand equity of the
Yep.
brand experience. So there's another kind of residual benefit there. I thought we were going to wrap up. You just brought one thought to my mind. I'm going to lead with this myself,
Mhm.
and the question is, how much does personal experience play into this? And what I mean by that is, like, over the last decade plus, I've made a tremendous investment in just my own self.
Mhm.
Coaching, therapy, marriage
Mhm.
counseling, looking to level up areas of my life, transform pain of the past into fuel for future growth. If you've never gone through that experience,
Mhm.
could there be a possible perspective gap of the perceived value that could be created here because there's no context into, like,
I can see that.
that was
Yeah.
something that I've just kind of became aware of just
I
through our
I
conversation here.
I yeah, I could totally see that because a lot of what, our philosophy when I was in my early 30s, I got life coach. It was a life-changing experience for me. A lot of those things I learned from my life coach. By the way, I teach to my financial coaches, trainers. Also, I went through WW Weight Watchers, and a lot of that experience has
Yeah.
led into, how we coach and train our teammates. So, yes, having perspective is huge or having empathy is huge. And I think there's again, money's so taboo. And this is the thing. I feel like it's like doctors are the worst patients. Financial institutions have some of the most unhealthy financial behaviors happening in them. And I think that's also creating a barrier for them to be able to provide the services for their
Mm,
employees or their clients because there is a lot of shame. I worked on a trading floor. I'd been working on a trading floor for years. I had some money I needed to invest, and guys were like, "Oh, just put in an ETF." I nodded my head. I didn't know what an ETF was.
mm,
14 years ago before I became a financial advisor, and I felt dumb and I was like, how do I should know this. I'm
right.
on the trading floor. I like why don't I know what an ETF is? And I think there's a lot of that happening in financial institutions. And if we all, like you just said earlier, if we're just all honest with each other and all just like look each other in the face and say, everybody's struggling here, how do we provide a solution for everyone? I
Yeah.
think we can get past these barriers, this shame and guilt of where we're working and what we look like financially and all that stuff.
It's the ancient wisdom of a rising tide lifts all ships. It's about leveling up
Mhm.
and growing and being even better together. So I want to look ahead towards the future from two different angles as we really do wrap up. And this is
Yeah.
for real because I've
Sorry I didn't let you
no, no,
Sorry,
no,
you're
no.
good.
I've really enjoyed this dialogue and this discussion because it's provided me with some additional things to think about too. Number one, look ahead towards the future yourself from your lens, from your vantage point. At a macro level, what are you most hopeful about for the industry at large when it comes to the possibilities of integrating financial coaching into the quote unquote what I'll call the product mix? What are you most hopeful about?
I'm most hopeful that I think that people are starting to see it more, the institutions are. So I've been doing this for 10 years. In the last 2 years, I've had more inbound people coming to us from an institutional level asking us about how to start a coaching program or how a coaching program should look. So I'm optimistic that I'm seeing that happen in the industry. I see the way I see it, and by the way, I'm talking to a number of credit unions about us being a credit union solution for a number of ways. I see people buying into that and seeing it, and I won't give away all of our strategy because it's pretty freaking epic when it will be launched, because at some point it will. But, the way we see it going is gonna be really game changing with
Absolutely.
coaching and financial institution combination.
I'm really looking forward to that narrative as that continues to unfold. What about just at the financial gym? What are you most excited and energized about as you start to write the next decade for the work that you're doing there?
I'm so excited for this RA process. The industry when I joined it 14 years ago hasn't changed. It's still, as one of our teammates said, male, pale, and stale. And our team doesn't look like that. Our clients don't look like that. We're really excited to provide them a solution that's going to be honestly game changing to the industry, game changing. Most of our clients have had to go to robo advisors. We've seen a lot of challenges from there. Again, lack of a human being in the process. So we're super excited there. And this is just the first step to additional products and services we're going to be able to underwrite and provide for our clients. So we're really excited about where we're expanding into.
Well, I am
And this is the
excited.
first part.
I am excited for you as you continue that journey of growth. Shannon, this has been a fabulous conversation. Thanks for sharing your experience, your knowledge, your journey, the lessons that you've learned along the way to help others. Once again, a rising tide does lift all ships. What is the best way for someone to reach out, say hello to you, to continue the conversation that we started here today?
Great. They can reach us. Go to financialgym.com is our website. Advisory at FinGyms is the email for people if they want to find out more about that, or at the Financial Gym, I think we're at the Financial Gym on Instagram, or I'm at the Shannon McLay on Instagram as well.
Lots of great ways to connect with the Financial Gym, to connect with you as well. Lots of great ways to continue to learn, grow, and be even better together. Shannon, thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. This has been a lot of fun today.
Thanks, James.
As always, and until next time, be well, do good, and be the light.